is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Indeed, by faith, our ancestors received approval. By faith, we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that the things that are seen were made from things that are not visible. By faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain's. And through this, he received approval as righteous, God himself having given approval to his gifts. He died, but through his faith, he still speaks. By faith, Enoch was taken and didn't experience death. And he was not found, for God had taken him. But it was attested before he was taken away that he had pleased God. And without faith, it's impossible to please God. For whoever would approach him must first believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. By faith, Noah, forewarned about events as yet unseen, respected the warning and built an ark to save his household. By this, he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that is in accordance with faith. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to set out for a place that he would receive as an inheritance. And he set out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he stayed for a time in the place he had received, as in a foreign land, living in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. He was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. By faith, he received power of procreation, even though he was too old, and Sarah herself was barren. But he considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, through one person, and this one as good as dead, descendants were born, as many as the stars of heaven and as the innumerable grains of sand at the seashore. All of these died in faith, not having received the promises. But from a distance, they saw them and they greeted them. They confessed that they were strangers and foreigners on the earth. And people who speak in this way, they make it clear that what they are seeking is a homeland. If they were thinking about the land they had left behind, they would have had opportunity to return there. But as it is, they're seeking a better country. That is a heavenly one. And therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God. Indeed, he's planned a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when put to the test, offered up Isaac. He who had received the promise was ready to offer his only son, about whom he had heard, it is through Isaac that descendants will be named after you. He considered that God is able even to raise someone from the dead, and figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. By faith, Isaac invoked blessings for the future on Jacob and Esau. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the children of Joseph, bowing in worship over the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave instructions for his burial. By faith, Moses was hidden by his parents for 3 months after his birth, for they saw that the child was beautiful and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of the Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer ill treatment with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered abuse suffered for the Christ to be greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt. He was looking ahead to the reward. By faith, he left Egypt, Unafraid of the king's anger, he persevered as if he saw him who is invisible. By faith, he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith, the people walked through the Red Sea as if on dry land. And when the Egyptians attempted to do so, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after being encircled for 7 days. By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who had been disobedient because she received the spies in peace. And what more can I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak, of Samson and Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who by faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions, quenched raging fires, escaped the edge of the sword, grew strength out of weakness, were mighty in battle, put foreign enemies to flight. Women received their dead through resurrection. Others were tortured, refusing to accept release in order to obtain a greater resurrection. Others suffered mocking and flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned to death. They were sawn in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, tormented, persecuted, of whom this world is not worthy. They wandered in deserts and on mountains, in caves and in holes in the ground. Yet all of these, though they were commended for their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better, so that they would not, without us, be made perfect.